be afraid. He'll never forsake you. Don't be afraid. The Lord goes before you through the trouble and strife, and He will protect you all the days of your life. He'll never forsake you. Don't be afraid. He'll never forsake you. Don't be afraid. Be strong and courageous and do not be afraid. The Lord goes with you each and every day. He'll never forsake you. Oh, don't be afraid. He will never forsake you. Don't be afraid. He'll never forsake you. Oh, don't be afraid. He will never forsake you. Don't be afraid. He'll never forsake you.
All right, good morning. It is Tuesday. I almost said Monday. I forgot yesterday was holiday. Tuesday, September 8, 2020, a monumental day here in Southeast Texas as for a number of schools. I know a number of other schools in this area have started, but first day of school for Nederland schools where we are located. I know a few of you have been back for a few weeks, but as we have encountered coronavirus and then a summer break that seemed like it was never going to end, and then a hurricane and outages of electricity. It seemed like this day would never get here, but it is here. So hopefully things go off without a snag. As the week goes forward, I know, as I said, some neighboring schools have started and it seemed like things have gone well, so pray that things will continue to go well. But back here with some daily Bible reading and also today interview on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Been doing some interviews with people that I know from my past, and today someone from the pretty good distant past. It's been a little while, a country minute or whatever you want to say, since I've encountered these folks from way down in Southeast Texas or South Texas, South Houston, whatever we want to call it. But my friend Bill O Brien, let me go ahead and bring him on, and then I'll give a little bit of a further introduction here in a little bit. There he is.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Bill. How are you, buddy?
Doing great. Doing great.
Good, good. Glad you could join us. And as we talk about a little bit seeking contentment, we'll bring that interview and some discussion a little bit with that topic and introduce that topic. It's been a little while since I've done one of these, a week or so. So as we get into that, we will share those. Did you want to read one of the Psalm 20 or Proverbs 20?
I can read Psalms 20.
All right, you got Psalm 20. All right, let's go ahead and start with that, and then I'll read Proverbs 20, and then I'll introduce you a little further and get some more discussions. Go ahead and read Psalm 20.
Okay, Psalms 20. May the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. May the name of the God of Jacob set you securely on high. May he send you help from the sanctuary and support you from Zion. May he remember all your meal offerings and find your burnt offering acceptable. May he grant you your heart's desire and fulfill all your counsel. We will sing for joy over your victory, and in the name of our God, we will set up our banners. May the Lord fulfill all your petitions. Now I know that the Lord saves his anointed. He will answer him from his holy heaven and the saving strength of his right hand. Some boast in chariots and some in horses, but we will boast in the name of the Lord our God. They have bowed down and fallen, but we have risen and stood upright. Save, O Lord. May the King answer us in the day we call.
All right, Proverbs 20. Wine is a mocker and beer a brawler. Whoever is led astray by them is not wise. A king's wrath strikes terror like the roar of a lion. Those who anger him forfeit their lives. It is to one's honor to avoid strife, but every fool is quick to quarrel. Sluggards do not plow in season, so at harvest time they look but find nothing. The purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out. Many claim to have unfailing love, but a faithful person who can find? The righteous lead blameless lives. Blessed are their children after them. When a king sits on his throne to judge, he winnows out all evil with his eyes. Who can say, I have kept my heart pure? I am clean and without sin. Different weights and different measures, the Lord detests them both. Even small children are known by their actions. So is their conduct really pure and upright? Ears that hear and eyes that see, the Lord has made them both. Do not love sleep, or you will grow poor. Stay awake, and you will have food to spare. It's no good, says the buyer, then goes off and boasts about the purchase. Gold there is, and rubies in abundance, but lips that speak knowledge are a rare jewel. Take the garment of one who puts up security for a stranger. Hold it in pledge if it is done for an outsider. Food gained by fraud tastes sweet, but one ends with a mouthful of gravel. Plans are established by seeking advice, so if you wage war, obtain guidance. A gossip betrays a confidence, so avoid anyone who talks too much. If someone curses their father or mother, their lamp will be snuffed out in pitch darkness. An inheritance claimed too soon will not be blessed at the end. Do not say, I'll pay you back for this wrong. Wait for the Lord, and he will avenge you. The Lord detests different weights, and dishonest scales do not please him. A person's steps are directed by the Lord. How then can anyone understand their own way? It is a trap to dedicate something rashly and only later to consider one's vows. A wise king winnows out the wicked. He drives the threshing wheel over them. The human spirit is the lamp of the Lord that sheds light on one's inmost being. Love and faithfulness keep a king safe. Through love, his throne is made secure. The glory of young men is their strength, gray hair the splendor of the old. Blows and wounds scrub away evil, and beatings purge the inmost being. Proverbs chapter 20. All right, lots of good stuff there in Proverbs. I always remind people or try to remind people as I read those, if you read a proverb a day, you can read the book of Proverbs in a month. So it's kind of a neat little thing there. 5 minutes a day probably to read a proverb roughly. And so lots of good insight and wisdom from the book of Proverbs. All right, a little further, Bill O Brien. I go almost way back to I've interviewed some other folks that go a little further back than you guys, but whenever Brooke and I got married, we moved to a little town, Sweeny, Texas. Whenever I remember, I tell people sometimes in the days of GPS today with Google Maps, the first time we ever drove to Sweeny, I think we were coming from Lafayette. And, we had the big paper atlas that you fold and you have to go from Louisiana and go to Texas and all that stuff. And our kids don't understand that. But we had that little paper atlas, or big paper atlas, I guess. And we were trying to drive to Sweeny, and we drove through Lake Jackson and we were holding the map, like, okay, how do we, trying to hold north and south and east and west. And we got to Brazoria. And then there was no, it took out our magnifying glass and you couldn't tell where to go from there. And so fortunately we drove off the right direction, or what we thought was the right direction. And finally we saw a sign that said Sweeny. Whenever we got, what's the highway that goes across Sweeny? I can't remember,
524 or something like that.
That's about right. Anyway, we got to Highway 524 and it said Sweeny to the right, 3 miles or 4 miles, whatever. And we were like, oh, finally. We are going to the place we're looking for, but it was not easy to. And I had someone tell me later, you have to be going to Sweeny to drive there, pretty much. Which because there's kind of a road on each side, and Sweeny's in the middle. Going from West Columbia and through, or Brazoria and around the other way. Sweeny's kind of in the middle of 524. So I think that's true on some level. After they told me that, I was like, yeah, that's kind of why it was hard to find originally. But
Either
a
that
little
or you're totally lost.
or totally lost. Yeah, and that's what people said later. You either work at the plant or work at the school for the most part. If you live in Sweeny, and that's kind of true in a lot of ways,
Yeah,
I think.
pretty much.
But my wife and I, we got married and we loaded up the U-Haul and moved to Sweeny, Texas. And I remember, I tell people this story too. Oh, who was the other person? Oh, two people showed up. I think we got there in the middle of the day, so a lot of people were working and things like that. But Joe Swint and Louis Smearsaw both showed up to help us move into our apartment. And
Yeah.
they were pretty old at the time, of course. I mean, they were probably in their 70s, and maybe Louis was maybe in his early 80s. I don't know, but or upper 70s. But anyway, I was kind of like, these are the guys that are helping us move in, and those guys they didn't stop. I said, let's stop and get some water. Oh, let's finish up, and they got us moved in. And so we spent, I think, about 2.5 years in Sweeny. But whenever we moved there, Bill has 3 kids, and Sandy, the oldest one, I don't remember what grade she was in, probably lower high school ish into upper high school as we were there. And then Sarah was kind of in middle school and the early high school, and Patrick was a little younger, so I didn't get to know him quite as well. He was kind of in upper elementary school probably, but I was chatting with Bill earlier to catch up a little bit. Now, Sandy has been teaching for 15 years, or this is her 15th year of teaching, and Sarah works at Women's Hospital in Houston and delivered her first baby by accident somewhat the other day. The doctor didn't quite make it, so she got to be so that's quite an interesting accomplishment. And then Patrick works at for an accounting firm in Angleton. So all these kids growing up, amazing. And recently, Bill and Sharon both retired about a year and a half ago. What do you say? January of 2019, Sharon retired, and then you retired in March or April 2019.
Yeah.
So, but as I moved to Sweeny, the O'Briens, and there were other families, the Lynches and Martins, but you guys were kind of the backbone of the youth ministry then. And what I appreciate and remember most about you, Bill, is your willingness to help. I tell people sometimes, give me someone that's willing to help. Maybe they don't know what they're doing exactly, but give me someone give me someone with the desire and the willingness to help and kind of give some instruction versus someone that thinks they know everything and aren't willing to help. I would rather have the person willing to help and to show up and, or to give their home for an activity or whatever it was. You guys were always willing to do that, or drive a suburban load of kids, to a gathering or whatever it was. And that's one of the things I remember well about you guys. And that I was thankful as did some ministry there in Sweeny and started, looking back, tripping around on myself probably a little bit, like we all do at our first job. But what do you remember about those few years? And do you remember anything come to mind?
We had a pretty active, pretty good sized youth group back then. Very active youth group.
It's fun to see all those kids grow up. Like I said, I see some of them.
And they grow up too fast.
I see some of them on Facebook and some of the things they're doing, and it's amazing to think. I didn't have kids then, and now I have a daughter that's a senior in high school. So yeah, that's time definitely flies by. Also, not too long ago, like I said, you guys are so giving. Now they have some Houston Texans season tickets, and one of the practices they put on Facebook, we can't go, and I said, hey, I'll go. And they're like, hey, here's our tickets. Go ahead and go. And I took a couple guys from church here, and we really had a good time. It was fun to get to experience that and get to see that. So, but I was thankful, and that was fun to do that. So, kind of as we unfold here in Philippians 4, I'm going to read that in just a minute, but 11 through 13, and I was going to get your perspective, Bill, on kind of being retired. You guys retired in the last year, 15 months, and kids that are kind of grown up and kind of out in the world and beginning to live or finding their way definitely these days. I still think of them as younger a bit, but growing into adulthood and productive members of society. And I wanted to get interviews from all kinds of people from all walks of life. So as you guys are retired, and I'm thinking in terms of seeking contentment. That's kind of the name of these interviews, seeking contentment. And
Mhm.
I want to read Philippians 4 because everyone
Mhm.
knows what Philippians 4:13 says pretty much, even people maybe that aren't Christians or don't even very familiar with the Bible perhaps, says Philippians 4:13 is on the walls of gyms or locker rooms and homes and whatever, the little decorative verses sometimes. And it's an important verse, not take anything away from that. But as I ask people sometimes as we talk about Philippians 4:13, do you know what Philippians 4:11 and 12 says? And they go like,
Mhm.
wait, what? Does that really matter? And yeah, that matters. You're
Mhm.
talking about the context of why Paul was able to write Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. We enjoy that verse and say, yes, we're gonna achieve, we're gonna be victorious, and Paul wrote that verse, but he also wrote Philippians 4:11 and 12, and I'll go ahead and read that. It says, I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I've learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all things through him who gives me strength. So Paul says, I've had both sides of the equation at times, and as we read, his story throughout the scripture, we see that. I read 2 Corinthians 11. There's a part in that chapter, where he talks about I was in danger in the city, in danger in the country. People were after me all over the place. It seemed like every turn, and then he writes this verse. He says, I've learned to be content, whatever the circumstance. Whether I'm, eating peanut butter and jelly, I always say whether eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day or having a steak dinner thrown in there. Paul says, I've learned to be content, and get through the day. So, kind of want to get your perspective, Bill. Some nuggets, some thoughts on how Bill O'Brien and the world we live in today, kind of swirling around us at times. How you seek to be content, whatever the circumstances.
Mhm. Well, we were actually in Washington D.C. In early March. The National Christian School Association had their annual meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So Sharon and I went up there, and both Glenn and Lynn Duncan were there, and also Robert Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
And we had just kind of started hearing about this virus then,
Mm-hmm.
and there was some talk of it during the meeting. And of course, that was the week that there were some terrible tornadoes in Tennessee. So there was talk of that, and then talk about the virus. We subsequently, after the meeting, went to down to Florida. We were going to go to spring training,
Mm-hmm.
and we got down there on a Saturday, and we were going to be down there, supposed to be down there 2 weeks. And Monday and Tuesday, we went and saw some spring training games, the Astros, and then we started hearing some talk Tuesday evening that back home, the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo was going to have a big meeting at noon Wednesday, and they canceled the Houston Livestock and Rodeo Show on Wednesday. And we
Which is a
kind
big,
of
yeah, which
looked
is
at
a
each other and kind of
big deal
talked
in
and
there. Yeah.
said, that was about the time the first NBA player had been tested positive, and we talked to each other, and we thought, I wonder if this is going to affect spring training in baseball. Well, I think it was either Thursday or Friday they shut down spring training, so we got cut a little short there. We were going to be there the rest of that week and the following week, and no spring training. So we did stay till Thursday of the following week. Kind of did some things around Orlando remotely, not around people, and drove home. And it was kind of different when we were driving home. You didn't see a whole lot of people on the road. And as you mentioned, the oldest, Sandy, is a teacher, so she's been pretty well affected by this. The nurse, of course, she's affected. And on Patrick, the firm that he worked for, there was, until they received a small business loan, he didn't know if he was going to have a job.
Oh wow.
So, but that turned out okay, and everything's fine.
Pick back up a bit.
One of the big things we do is we just try to encourage the kids. Because for Sandy, what started as the week that they had spring break was the first week that the virus kind of hit, and then they extended spring break another week, and then they extended it another week, and subsequently never went back.
Yeah.
And she really does not like teaching remotely.
Yeah.
So
Double
we,
the work somewhat, yeah, for all the
yeah,
teachers.
her mother's probably a better encourager with her on that than I am, but they are, in fact, Needville, where she teaches, this is their 4th week of school, and they actually gave them an option. So about a third of the students, she teaches 8th grade, about a third of them are remote, and the other 2/3 are in person, and she's teaching both classes.
Wow, man.
Yeah,
Quite the different. Yeah, a lot of preparation.
Very different. Very different.
Yeah.
The nurse has done well. She's actually worked around some people that had tested positive, but she's okay, and Patrick's doing fine. It's, I guess our big thing is to try to encourage the kids. Church, we actually started meeting in early May. We do socially distance. It's interesting, the brothers and sisters, you love them all, but some of them don't believe in wearing masks. And some of them do, and it's kind of split in our congregation too.
Yeah, kind of a mix, yeah, somewhat.
Yeah, but we are going back to church, and that was a good thing. I think. Some
social interaction. Yeah,
it was good to get back, and like I mentioned to you earlier before we came on, we actually this past summer at our church we have what we call a summer series. On Wednesday nights, we bring in preachers from different cities in the area, and they deliver a message to us, and without exception, every one of them had mentioned how great it was to have a live audience.
Yeah, everybody was distant so much. I remember first time we got back together after we were about 6 weeks all online, and it was weird to see people again. Yeah, actually,
it is
actually
different.
seeing the flesh, even though we were still distant somewhat, like you said.
Yeah, and so we're going Sunday morning. We're not going Sunday evening, and we're going Wednesday evenings. And on Sunday we continue, even though we have face-to-face, we continue to webcast them, and there's quite a few people.
Yeah.
Some older people that still don't feel comfortable coming, and that's fine because we've got a webcast, and we'll probably continue that for a while.
Yeah, I think a lot of churches are doing that. Yeah, that's what we've done too. Have both offered, and for folks that need that option, yeah.
And so it's very different times. I do take. It's encouraging to me, as quirky as it sounds, sometimes I'll just go out on the back porch and sit on the swing. And I'll sit out there and sometimes I read the Christian Chronicle sitting out there. So I've got a Power for Today that I normally try to read that each day. Or I may just sit and watch the birds. And it's just kind of comforting to see what God's created. And
well,
we all know that He's in control.
I've talked to a number of people too that sometimes in the digital culture we live in, and just 24-hour news cycles. An older lady at church that's not as digitally connected, she said the only news she watches is just the regular network news. But sometimes there's such negative news, even when I told her, I said, some online you can look for some positive news and find some of those stories easier than, what's funneled through your TV, and she's relying upon that. But she was just saying she gets discouraged sometimes, listening to that all the time. And I said, well, kind of like you said, sometimes you just have to detach and go, okay, I'm not going to maybe even turn on the TV today or watch the news today, if there's something gargantuan, you'll hear about it, but just turn it off for a day. Because I find myself sometimes like that. You get a bit discouraged, and then you kind of flip the TV off for a day or two, and then you go, I feel better, just my mentality and my psyche and whatever. So I think there is definitely something to do with, like I said, pausing and kind of taking in God's creation, and just pushing pause on schedules and whatever. And that's kind of what this has forced us to do a little bit too. Even some of us still working full time, to pause and missing professional sports and new movies and it's a hiccup and it's a frustration, but we still look at what we value in life and go, okay, there's still value there, and God, like you said, God's still in control, and even without all these new leagues starting or new seasons starting and new movies coming out and new whatever, life goes on, and maybe those things aren't quite as much value as we placed upon them before. Gives us a little perspective, so that's definitely helpful to pause and like you said, taking God's creation and just be silent, and rather than always going. I know it's probably easier since you guys are retired now to take those opportunities as opposed to before, but that's definitely important to fill our tank up. What else? Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's very encouraging to take a breath of fresh air and just kind of relax. I'm with the lady you talked about. There were days that I didn't want to watch the news. I would I'd go outside or I'd go for a walk or something. I just didn't, because it was just all bad news, nothing positive. But
yeah,
so.
Yeah, and definitely being, and that, like I said, I remember you and Sharon both as very encouraging when I was there, and I know that hasn't changed about you. And like I said, as you try to encourage your kids through some of these challenging times, and church folks, brothers and sisters there, try to encourage. I always tell people, talk about encouraging. You want to be the person that when you're walking up to the lunch table, people say, "Hey, come and have a seat, Bill. We want you to eat lunch with us, or whatever." As opposed to some people you probably think of in your past that you go, they're coming to the table and they're a discourager and everyone gets up and leaves, and wait, where are you going? Well, we don't really want to eat lunch with you. But I definitely remember you guys as great encouragers, and that's definitely helpful day by day. With the people that you interact with and we interact with in general, it's important to keep that in mind, definitely.
Yeah, and you remember Brother D. Ray Alford, one of his favorite sayings was, "Hey, this time will pass too."
Yeah,
and it will.
We have a gentleman here.
I think we're more than ready for it to pass.
We have a gentleman here. He says everything's going to burn up anyway. Kind of talking about possessions and whatever people get hung up with and consumed with. It's all going to burn up one day.
That's right.
That's what he sort of reminds me, kind of somewhat of a similar thought there.
So, but it's been a challenging time, but it will pass.
Yeah,
we're starting to come out of it. I believe we're starting to come out of it, and hopefully in the next several weeks, especially with y'all going back to school now.
As I say, school's starting back on playing some football games and things like that. Will give a little bit of a shot in the arm, hopefully.
Yeah, Sweeney's actually played 2 football games, and I went to both of them. And they do a pretty good job on social distancing, and they will only sell a certain number of tickets, and then they won't let anybody else in.
Yeah, I think they're supposed to announce today actually what their plan is here. I think they're going to have parents and families with football players and band and whatever gets priority, and then they'll open up to the season ticket holders after that. And then because there's season tickets here, it's kind of like the Green Bay Packers. Whenever they sell tickets, there's no more than 10 usually that come open, but people camp out for like a day or two to get in the front of the line, to get season tickets. So it's kind of fortunately my wife has a friend that has some season tickets that her daughter's grown up, and she lets us use them, so we don't have to worry too much. So but yeah, it's that time of year that'll definitely help get things back in the high school football.
We're starting to come out of it. We gotta just toe the line and continue to wear masks and do the right things, and we'll be all right.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up. I'm gonna close this with a prayer. Thanks for visiting, Bill, and sharing some of your life and some encouragement with us. As we talk about encouraging, I think that is important to especially those who are. I know I encourage our congregation, those who are alone, who live alone. Important to check on them and let them know you're thinking about them during these times. As we've had a little bit more distancing and things, and like I said, some people staying at home. So seek to do that as well. So, all right, let's close with a prayer. Father, thank you for another day that we have to live, and pray that as we go forward that we would seek to live and walk in you. thankful for school beginning today and going on for a few weeks in other places, and pray that you bless those times as those students get back to some normalcy in their schedule and families do. We're thankful for that opportunity and pray that you be with the teachers as they prepare. Sandy, as Bill mentioned, his daughter, as she works through some challenging times here of teaching, and just pray that you'd be with her and other teachers and the students, and that they would be able to learn the things they need to learn and to do their best. We're just thankful for your watchful eye day by day, and pray that we would seek to walk in you day by day as we go. Pray that you be with a couple situations personally. Dee Bristow from Louisiana, friend, just yesterday has some heart trouble, and today they're going to be doing some testing and to see what they need to do in relation to his health. And pray that you also be with the Donna Leonard family, connected to our congregation, grandparents of young man here, and as her passing, just pray that you'd comfort him and comfort their family during this time, and pray that you'd be with Billy Faust as she recovers in the hospital from some blood clots and leg surgery and other health challenges. We know that you watch them all, and pray that we would encourage them in these challenging times. Thankful for blessings we have in you, and pray that we would seek to be a blessing to others as we go day by day. I'm just thankful for the promise you give us of heaven, and help us to seek to walk in you so that we can see that. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Yeah.
All right, Bill. Well,
Okay.
thanks for your time and
Thank you.
words, and everyone go and be a blessing. And as Bill mentioned, an encouragement to someone today as we walk through the day today.
Okay. Have a great day.
All right,
Be
you
safe.
too, Bill. All right, bye-bye.